This is the Arc Audio Blackbird, and I'm Nathan from Cambridge Autosound. I run a little car audio shop in Cambridge. The Blackbird is a 8-channel all-in-one amplifier with then 4 additional DSP outputs. So it's a 12-channel DSP with 8 amplified channels. The 8 amplified channels are 75 watts per channel at 4 ohms, 125 watts per channel at 2 ohms, and you can bridge this. So bridged, it's 250 watts at 4 ohms. It retails at $13.99, so I'd say its competition's probably the Audison Forza M, the bigger power one, the M814, and the new Helix V8 Ultimate. The Audison I haven't got here right now. The Helix I have, and we'll have a look at that in a minute. I'll probably try and get the Audison in just so I can do a good comparison of that one as well. All-in-one amplifiers are obviously a brilliant way of upgrading the audio in your car without having to go to the extent of a separate DSP and multiple amplifiers. Obviously then you've got multiple things to power and running RCAs from the DSP to the various amplifiers. It's quite a complicated advanced setup. So these are a great way of one device, plug it in, and it's going to give you a massive upgrade to your car audio. The downsides of DSP amplifiers, I guess, is that it doesn't give you quite the same amount of headroom. So if you like listening to really, really loud music, then a separate DSP and multiple amplifiers is probably the way to go because it's just going to give you that additional headroom. That said, I'll be interested to see how this compares to the current setup that I've got in my BMW that's sat behind me. If you aren't aware of that, there's a video on this channel. I'll put the link up in one of the corners and in the description. So you can have a quick look at the setup that I've got in that car at the moment. But in brief, it's a DSP with 3 amplifiers, active front end, so the tweeter, mid and under seat are all run on separate amplified channels. And then I've got 2 10-inch subwoofers in the boot. Full disclosure, I've been sent this for free to test. I haven't paid for this, but I'm going to give it an honest assessment either way. And so a big thank you to Arc Audio for sending me this. I wasn't overly familiar with the Arc Audio range, and I don't know if it's correct to say that they're new to the UK, but they're certainly new to the distributor that I use, hence why I've got this unit to try now. But there is a companion amplifier that goes with this. You can get a mono block that I think also works as a 2-channel, so you could run some mid basses off that. And there's some multifunction dials, or there's a multifunction screen you can get with it. We'll come back to that later. And there's a sub-control dial you can get as well. I'll also run through the DSP software. So I'm very familiar with the Helix DSP software, obviously. I've never used the Blackbird or the Arc Audio DSP software. I have got it installed on my laptop already. I had a quick look at it without it plugged into an amplifier. So I'll show you the whole process. I'll screen record the screen and you can see how easy it is to plug the amplifier in for the first time, do any firmware updates, get it set up. Because although you only have to do that once, that's quite an important part of the process and why I particularly like the Helix ecosystem. But we'll see how this works and I'll give you an honest assessment of that. For now, let me get it unboxed and we can have a chat about a few more of the specs as we go. So what do you get for your £1,400? Well, inside the box, we've got your cables, looks like speaker output, and then 2 different versions of inputs. So you've got high level and low level. And then there's a 2-meter USB, and it's a USB mini, so it's slightly different to some of the DSP amps I've used before, which are typically, that's probably a USB micro. So yeah, USB mini is the one that most of the Helix software uses. Unless I've lost it, I have actually had this open before just to have a quick look at the amplifier, but there isn't an instruction manual with this one, so it's probably a case of going online, but most of them are fairly self-explanatory in terms of the physical connections. So that's your amplifier. It's a fairly small unit actually, and all the connections are all on one side, which is good. That and the Audison has that in common, so if you want to put it much closer to the kind of the back of a seat or wherever you're going to put it, you can put it right up against something on this edge and all your connections come out one side. Maybe that's one of the downsides of the Helix products, is that you've actually got wires out of both sides, so you need to make sure you have clearance for that. Quick bit of man maths, the quick way to roughly work out power of an amplifier, 30 amps times 3, so that's 369 times it by 10, 900. They say this is a 1,000-watt amplifier, so we're in the ballpark. We'll have a look at the other amplifiers as well. Not sure if they're 4-gauge. They look like 4-gauge terminals, so we'll see if that works, because it's always nice to run a decent size power and earth to an amplifier of this power. Then you've got 4 RCA outputs, so that's your DSP controlled pre-outs. They're on the chassis of the amplifier. Again, the Helix and the Audison, you've got a fly lead that comes off for those. So you just need to allow room for the RCA cable when you're mounting this. But that's good having 4 outputs, because you can typically run a subwoofer amplifier. You could also then run 2 channels to the mid basses if you wanted to run much higher power mid basses, for instance, or a front sub as well. So yeah, 4 additional outputs. Then obviously your typical remote in and out. It's got optical input, so for a Bluetooth streamer, or if you've got like a Zen module, or like a Helix SDMI 25, which is actually outdated now, but the current versions of that can convert from most fiber optic or anything. Not too sure what this is. That's probably for one of the controllers that you can get, which I haven't got. And then obviously the inputs, if you're doing high level or low level input, which I'm not, I'm going to be using the optical input. And then your outputs, they're all on a fly lead. So fairly simple setup. Maybe not the world's highest quality packaging, but at the end of the day, you want all of the money and R&D and cost that you're kind of outputting to go into the actual amplifier. So as long as that's good, it doesn't matter what the packaging's like. One very slight thing I noticed, and I haven't actually opened this yet, but I need to put all my connectors onto this to connect it into the car. If I just rip this open, there we go. One slight thing I noticed compared to the Helix and the Audison is we haven't got any heat shrink or no kind of markings on these wires to tell you what they are, which line you're working with. So you have to then trace it back to the plug. Let me show you the Helix one very quickly. So just as a comparison, this is from the new Helix Ultimate V8. And you've got the heat shrink around the wires that tells you speaker output 1, speaker output 3, speaker output, where is it? 2 and 4, obviously. Which is nice just from an installer's point of view. You don't then have to trace the wire all the way back to the plug and go, okay, that's number 1, because sometimes you'll tessellate these together to make it really neat, and then if you're doing the connections afterwards, it's going to be impossible to know which one's which. So that's a nice touch on the Audison and the Helix. It's not on the Arc Audio. Just as a small note, but we'll work it out as we go. Right, pretty simple unboxing, not a huge amount to see. Again, let me just show you this. So that's the top, that's the front, that's the bottom, and then the sides. There's nothing on the sides or the back. There's a little bit of heat ventilation. There's this funny panel on the back as well that moves very slightly, so I don't know why they've blanked a lot of that heat ventilation off, or the heat sink, but yeah, it looks like it does most of its heat sinking through the top, so you probably could put that quite close to a wall or the back of the boot or something. Let me get this wired up and in the car, and then we'll have a little look at the software. Right, so you saw me soldering all the connections onto this lead. It was actually, I mean, I say it's a pain, but it takes a second longer. But again, it's just something you don't have to think about on the other ones if there's the channel numbers on each of the wires. But you just have to make sure you've got those wires the right way around. That looks a total mess because it's for your own car. It's like a builder's house. It's never finished. But I also left it with all these connectors on so that I could do exactly this and hook up different amps relatively easily. So all the other amps I've got underneath the floor here. You'll have seen that in the other video, hopefully. This is then how I splice into the 8 channels within the car. That's the SDMI that handles the most fiber optic and converts it. So we've got power coming in, we've got the USB hooked up, we've got remote coming in, which comes from the SDMI, and then remote out, which goes to the sub amp, because I'm still going to be running the sub of this. And we've got optical in. Not plugged in at the moment is the subwoofer out and the speaker out, because I want to make sure the amp's configured and it's not going to blow all the speakers up as soon as it gets plugged in. Also, I got it wrong. I hadn't actually downloaded the software. I'd obviously looked at the website and seen some screenshots, or maybe I'd watched a YouTube video of it, but I'm just downloading it now. To download it, arcaudio.com. If I just go back from this page, let me go back, there we go. So Arc Audio, car audio amplifiers brings you to this page. Obviously we're looking at DSP amplifiers, but have a look around the Arc Audio website because you can see what else they, asking me to update parallels. This is on a Mac, by the way, so it'll be interesting to see if this works. The other two amplifiers that I mentioned before, the Audison and the Helix, they do work off a Mac. So let's see if this works. Into DSP amplifiers, obviously we're looking at the Blackbird, and download DSP software. Right, so I should be screen recording on the laptop, so then I can overlay that so you're not having to look at it all through the camera. But I've just opened up this file, Blackbird V 1.2.398, and I've got an icon down here. What's going on? That I can't see. There we go, so it's hidden behind that window. So I agree, install. Yes. So this is just putting the software onto the laptop, and let's launch. That was nice and quick. Obviously the amp's not actually on yet, so I just want to get the software on there, and then I'll turn the ignition on for the car and we can see where we're at. Has it launched? Let's minimize this and minimize this. I've got a logo. There we go. Okay, a new app version. Install now. The app will exit, and it's maybe that's a Mac formatting thing, but I can't see the bottom of that window to be able to accept it. Can I use the keys? No, so that's interesting. Let's just exit out of that. I'll try and do the update later, perhaps. Ah, here we go. Let's click this. Update. Install the latest Blackbird app version. Install now. Yes. Okay, so it's interesting to see this because obviously anyone watching this video that's thinking about buying one of these amps will probably have to go through this same process. So I'm just going to run it through live. It might be a bit long. I'll put chapters in the video if you want to then jump past all this just to get to how the amp sounds in the car on the initial listen, feel free. But if you're interested in how all this works, then yeah, grab a cup of tea and a biscuit and carry on watching. I might speed bits of the video up as well, but just so you can not have to sit here and watch something download. Okay, it looks like that's downloaded. Oh, it's doing it for me. So I didn't even click install, it's just doing it. Agree, install, yes. Okay, we've got a bit of a version history here. I'm not going to go all through that to see what's been done, but hopefully we're on the latest version now. So let's just, okay, this window. What's going on here then? So I think I need to turn the car on because I don't think the amp's actually awake yet. So let me just put the ignition on the car. Which then will wake up the SDMI 25, and that will wake up the amp. And yeah, here we go. So allow accessory to connect to the Mac, yes. And then I want it to work on Windows and always allow. So amplifier's awake. Are there any lights on the amplifier? Yeah, sort of. The actual, let me grab the camera and show you that actually, because there's not really any lights as such, but the speaker output terminal illuminates. So I guess that's how you know that it's on. But as far as I can tell, there's no other lights that tell you that it's actually on. So the amp's awake. Sometimes, yeah, here we go. There'll be a firmware update that then needs sending to the amp. So upgrade now, yes. This upgrade, this will upgrade the main DSP PSC firmware, yes. Disconnect all outputs, well, they're not connected, so that's good. So now we're updating the amp, so the amp's going to be up to date, the software's up to date. Pretty seamless so far, this is good. This is something that I have on most of the Helix amps that we plug in as well. Obviously, I've already got the Helix software on my laptop, so I don't have to download that each time. But whenever we plug the Helix amps in, it normally comes up saying there's a firmware update and that you just have to then update the amplifier as well. So this is pretty typical, and this is going about as well as we could hope for so far. So device is restarting. And then when this wakes back up, hopefully this will be ready to start configuring. Allow accessory to connect, yes. Always allow, even though I clicked that last time, it never seems to remember it, but that's a Mac thing, I think, more than an amplifier and Arc software thing. Device is restarting again, okay, fine. Firmware upgrade is complete, okay. So everything's current, good. All current, recovery, link, right. Now, I guess I need to work this software out. Input DSP, this page is obviously, I think, more important if you're using high or low level inputs. You can set the gains, delay polarity for the channels up here where I'm circling the cursor, and equalizer for the inputs. But that's not so important for me because I'm using the digital input, and actually down here where I'm moving the cursor, 9 and 10 low input, that was flashing a minute ago when I was the phone was obviously playing some music to the car, so I think that's where the this software is seeing the link come in. Obviously I've got a digital light over here, so it can see the digital link, and 9 and 10 were lit up before when it was playing music. This has obviously got 1 to 8 because that's how many high level inputs you can put into this amplifier, high or low level. So we're not looking at that bit at the moment, so that's fine. And maybe we'll circle back to that at some other point. Mixer, again, it looks very confusing the way they've laid this out, but this looks like you can, or source optical, here you go. So 9 and 10 is your optical. And have we got any gain adjustment for those? Yeah, come on, let's go across. No. Okay, so there's no gain adjustment for the input side of the optical by the looks of it, but you can adjust the gain inputs for the high or low level. I'm just going to jump in here. It's Sunday afternoon and I'm making the video, and I kind of discovered this little trick after initially setting the system up. So I still find this mixer page a little bit confusing. Maybe with a bit more use it'll start to make sense more, but in the tools you've got mixer assist. You've also got a quick link to it down here in the right hand corner, mixer assist. If you click on that, it gives you a bit more of a visual representation of what's going on. So at the moment it's set up that just like a 2-channel high level or low level input, so it's splitting the channel 1 and 2 coming in and then assigning them out to the various outputs. I'm not using the high or low level inputs, I'm using digital inputs. So if on here I click all off, and then you can either click on these little pips down here, you can either click directly on the blue pips to turn them green and turn them off again, or you could just click toggle SP diff, and that seems to make them all flash and then turn them on. So that's now then splitting left and right inputs and assigning them up to these channels, which then if you kind of follow left up here, that's going to output channel 1, which is our left tweeter, and you can follow them all up there. The only thing I want to change is I'm going to turn off 12, 11 and 10, and then channel 9 is our subwoofer. I actually want that to be getting left and right, so it's if you fade left or right, it's going to be getting equal bass kind of thing, so you want that coming in on both of them. So that's just a bit more of a visual way to set it up. I also said, or I'm about to say in the video, that I don't think you can set the gain for the optical source. You can, you just click on it here. You can use the slider, or you can put in, I think you can go to +6. Yeah, there you go. But I just want those at 0. Another little thing that I found, this slider on the right, once I had set all the system up, it was playing extremely quietly. I didn't understand why. You need to change this slider from -60 up to 0, or it's probably just easier if you just type in 0. That's then the amplifier putting out its maximum potential. I guess if you had their conductor plugged in, their conductor screen, then that's where you would adjust the overall system volume. But that's just a couple of quick things that I found. Important to have this dial set to 0, and if you don't understand this screen, which I didn't, click on Mixer Assist, and that should be a little bit more visual, a little bit more helpful for you. Back to the video. Input range, oh, that's this bit here. I see. So then if it's a high, so if you're connecting, for instance, for a BMW out of the Harman Kardon, the bass speakers are quite powerful there, so you change it to 32 volts for that, whereas most other like head unit level or just speakers coming out of an amplifier will be at 8 volts. But again, we're using the digital, so that's not important on this one. Output DSP, this is where it's more important for my car. So we've got channels 1 and 2 over on this side, which is my tweeters. So typically when I'm setting things up, you'll have left then right. So left tweeter, right tweeter will be channels 1 and 2, left mid, right mid 3 and 4, left mid bass and right mid bass 5 and 6, and then left rear, right rear 7 and 8, and then your subwoofers channel 9. That's the way I set most of the cars up that I work on anyway. So I don't want any high pass on, or low pass, sorry, on the tweeters. So I'm going to adjust this to flat because I want the tweeters to play full range. It's linking the channels here, so it's linking what I'm doing on channels 1 and 2 at this point. And for the high pass, I've got my tweeters set at 2,500 hertz. So that's not going to blow them up, we hope. We'll test that in a minute. Channels 3 and 4 are the mid-ranges. Mids, I want those playing from 150 and hit enter, and to integrate with the tweeters, let's roll those off at 2,500. So Linkwitz-Riley, that's the crossover I normally use. 24 dB slope, that's the crossover I normally use as well. There's plenty of videos explaining why that is, but that's now linked channels 3 and 4 to those frequencies. So again, we're not going to blow up the mid-ranges by trying to send them anything below 150 hertz. Mid-bass, worth saying as well that this amplifier, like I said before, it puts out 125 watts at 2 ohms. My previous setup put out 220 watts at 2 ohms. So this is going to be quite significantly down on power on paper compared to the other setup. So got to take my mid-bass performance with a pinch of salt. And my mid basses I had set up previously at 65 hertz up to 150 for where they integrated with the mid ranges. Rears, I want those to play full range as well, so let's set that to a flat response for the low pass, and the high pass 160 and enter. Output 9 will be my subwoofer, so I don't need to link those channels, and I don't need a low pass, so let's set that to flat. Disabling the high pass crossover can damage speakers. Are you sure? No. Am I doing the right thing? Yeah, I am sure. So I want to get rid of that. In fact, let's just put that to flat. So yes, that's just saying it's going to send a full low range signal, and low pass, I don't want that playing anything over 65 hertz, so it can integrate with the mid basses. So that's my setup. I'm not using channels 10, 11 or 12, so I'm not going to set any settings for those. How do you save this to the device? Preset 1. I should have probably checked this beforehand, but again, you're learning as I'm learning. Selected device, Blackbird, what's this little icon here? Refresh connected device, add a Wi-Fi device. What I actually want to do is just save this preset to the device, then I can unplug the amp and plug the speakers in. Let's have a quick look around the rest of this software anyway, it might become apparent to us. So delay polarity, we'll go through this in a minute. I'll set the delays for all the speakers because I know what those are based on my previous settings from the Helix software. Equalizer, this is going to be interesting how we connect this or get the readings from REW into this, but I'll have to play with that in a minute. Levels, yeah, we can set all those. That's the levels per speaker. Sometimes you need to then level adjust just to get the staging correct. Limiters, don't understand that at all at the moment, but it looks very complicated. Tone, I guess this is then an overall, like with the Helix, you've got the virtual channels, you can then set a global tone. Dynamic EQ, I guess that's based on volume level of the system, that then you can have a little bit more bass or a bit more or a bit less treble at various volume levels, and remote. We haven't got a remote plugged in. So let's, what's that button there? Keep this window on top. No, show keyboard. Doesn't look. Settings, preset settings, device settings. Yeah, not sure. Let me come back to you on that. I think I found it. It's down here, preset 1. We've got loaded. I think that's showing that it's loaded. And then if I hit 1 underneath there, save to preset 1 advanced. What does that do? Name, color. Don't need to muck with any of that. Yeah, let's just save. Does that update the amp? So there's not really anything that tells you that it does or not. I guess the key is going to be if I pull the USB out, close the software, let's power down the car, load the car back up, or load the car up, start the car again. So let's turn the car off. Let's make sure the amp shuts down. And then see if when it starts back up, it's remembered my settings. It's all good fun learning a bit of new hardware and software, isn't it? Especially when you're recording it for YouTube. Okay, the amp shut down. I've just turned it back on again. I've just plugged the USB back in. If this was any other device I've used and you hadn't saved it, or when I say saved, I mean like sent it to the amp for the amp to remember, then it would forget that. But let's just load this back up because it looked like that's what it was doing in saving the preset. So has it saved it? Yeah, it looks like it has. So we've got output 1 and 2 at high pass 2500, mid ranges 150 to 2500. Yeah, that looks like it's saved it. Okay, good. So we're getting somewhere. I think it's pretty safe now if I plug the speakers in and just make sure it's actually playing and then start doing some EQ adjustment. Right, well, I hope some of that made sense. It's taken a long time to try and understand how this software works, but I've got the input working, which is the 2-channel coming from the digital. I've assigned it to all the various speakers. I've set the crossovers for all the various speakers so they don't blow up. And then I did a quick level match and copied basically my delay settings from the Helix software because I was happy with those. Had a listen to it without EQing anything at all, and it actually sounds really, really nice. So that's a good thing. It's obviously worth this hassle so far, just to see if we can get it working properly. One interesting thing, I don't seem to be able to get the differential rear fill working. I don't know if there's a way of doing that. I'll speak to Arc Audio maybe over the weekend or next week and see if there's something I'm missing, but it doesn't look like there's a way of doing that, which there is on the Helix and on the new Audison software. And that's personally how I prefer my rears to run. I don't want to hear any vocal information coming from behind me. Just trying to do the EQ settings at the moment, which this is much slower than the Helix software. The Helix software and the Audison software, to be fair, have got RTAs, real-time analyzers, built into them. This doesn't, so you have to keep going to REW, which is another piece of very advanced, very capable software, arguably better than what's built into Helix and Audison. But I did tests with the Helix amp, tuning it in REW and importing it versus just tuning it in the Helix. And to my ear, the results were extremely similar, if not the same. So this is a very long-winded way of tuning an amp as far as I'm concerned. You have to open up REW, open up the see, I'm kind of confused at doing it now, maybe because I don't do this massively regularly, because like I say, I do it within the Helix software, but you have to go to each individual speaker, open up the EQ, set then your speaker type that you're using, 4-inch speaker driver, there we go, and then I can change the R4, so that's a 24 dB either side. If we want this to 150 and then to 2500, oops, no, 2500, and then let's bring this down to 59 dB, which is where I've done everything else. I want to match the range between 70 and, let's say, 70 and 5000, no more than a 6 dB boost, match response to target. And it's not going to boost this lower section here because it's too far out of spec. So that's where I think on the other amp I'd adjusted the crossover, but we'll go into that in more another time. I'm just going to chuck a quick EQ on there and listen to it and see what it's like over the weekend, basically. I'm going to leave you for now. I'm going to finish setting this up. It's 7:10 on an extremely hot Friday afternoon. Thankfully, I've been in an air-conditioned room all day. I hope this has been of interest to you. This is the Arc Audio Blackbird. I'll come back. I'll do another video, maybe a sum-up video of all the different amplifiers that I'm going to test. So the next video will probably be a similar video to this, but on the Helix V8 Ultimate, and then hopefully on the Audison M8.14. We'll do a similar process on all of those, and then I'll do a final video at the end, just summing up the experience and the sound quality that I enjoyed from each of these different amplifiers. If you're interested in this, like I say, this is $13.99. It's available through various outlets in the UK, me being one of them. So if you're interested in this amp, give me a shout, and I can certainly help you get it within the UK. If you're in the US, there's going to be loads more places that you can get it. But like I say, initial listening, just on turning it on with no EQ, sounded great, but the proof's in the pudding. Let me leave this in the car for a week, listen to all the kind of usual music that I listen to, let it battle against the road noise. Obviously, I haven't got a bass controller in this. Actually, that's worth saying. So a couple of the downsides that I've already noticed. One, the tuning is much slower, but if it's miles better, then it's going to be worth it, but we'll see. Two, the options for bass control knobs. So I'll overlay this in the video, but you've basically got a large screen with a dial that you can do everything. You can kind of set your EQs on there. I think you can set delays, crossovers, rear level, sub level. That to me is far too complicated. I don't want that in a car, and I don't think I'll ever install that in a car. Arc have obviously got one, Audison have got one, and Helix have got one. All that big kind of screen and where you can do far too much. That's not what I want and what I'll ever suggest to a customer. What I like is obviously the Helix conductor. I'm extremely kind of used to using that, where you can adjust main overall volume, sub volume, and change your presets. Audison have also got one. I think it's called the DRC AB. I can't remember. I'll put it up on the screen. But again, a small multifunction dial that you can press. It's got some LEDs on there, so you know the level of the sub and the inputs that you're playing. If Arc Audio did one of those, I think it would become a much more accessible proposition. But for me at the moment, without that, it's probably a bit of a non-starter in terms of what I'm going to offer. But like I keep saying, let's wait and see what the sound quality is like once I've got it all EQ'd in and I've listened to it for a few days. Thanks for watching. Sorry this is very long. If you've got any questions, drop them in the comments. Hopefully, maybe the guy from Arc Audio will be there as well, and he can answer some of your questions. This isn't the last tests of this particular amp. I'm going to send this to someone that's on YouTube that does quite in-depth reviews of the distortion levels and all kinds of things like that. So much more technical. I'm just doing it from an installation point of view and a quick setup and a listening point of view. But be sure to check that out. Rawcat is on YouTube. Whether or not I'll then send it to various other people, because I'm going to get it back from him. It's just going to him for testing. But watch this space. We'll see what happens. The guys from Arc Audio seem great and quite enthusiastic and keen to get this out there in the UK and in front of as many people. So I'm a tiny little company, but maybe because I'm tiny, I can try these little things rather than bigger companies that are just pumping out the same brand day in, day out. Final few thoughts, because I've just been in the car for around an hour or so listening to a fair bit of music. The tuning side, just going back to that, I think I'd get quicker at it using REW and going between REW and then obviously the Arc software. It would be nice if you could, there's a button on REW that you can click copy, and then on the Helix software, again, when I have used REW, as soon as you press that, the Helix software starts flashing. I did raise this or mention this to the Arc Audio guy when he came in. Can't quite remember why he said they hadn't done it or couldn't do it, but yeah, the whole save file, I think you probably saw in the video, initially I was trying to save it as the wrong format, which then Arc wouldn't understand. It's just a very long process. Also, there's no visual graphic equalizer, it's just you've got the sliders. So I'm used to looking at the graphic equalizer just as an overall representation of what the EQ is doing on each channel. Again, I'm sure you get used to that. It's just coming from many years of using the Helix software. But the initial listening impressions, it's very, oh, you can't even see my face. It's so bright. I don't know if that's, I mean, first of all, I like a bright system. I have quite a few customers, and when I tune a customer's car, I'll often tone it down a little bit because the feedback I've had is often like, oh, the treble's a little bit bright. So I know I like a bright system. But with my own system, with it previously running through the Audison amps, I was always kind of wondering whether the tweeter needed changing or the EQ needed redoing. Not so at the moment. Whether or not I messed up the REW EQ, and I need to have a look back at it. But yeah, very bright, not too bright, but definitely not lacking in overall clarity. Super clean. Be interesting to see what the actual statistical analysis is, almost that Rawcat does. But I'm assuming this is going to be a really clean, nice amp. Lacking mid bass, obviously we said that before. It had, the underseats had 220 watts going to them. Now they've got about 125 there or thereabouts. One thing as well that Arc did say is that their numbers are quite conservative. So where they're on paper it's 75 watts a channel and 125 watts at 2 ohms. He said it's probably getting more than that. Again, I haven't got the equipment to test that, whether or not Rawcat has, and he can actually test the power output or not, I'm not sure. But the way I've got it level matched at the moment and the way that I EQ'd it, it can probably be played with a little bit more, but it feels like the underseats are definitely lacking compared to the previous setup. It will be interesting when I try the Helix Ultimate, which on paper has 220 watts of output at 2 ohms. That again is on paper the same as the Audison amps that I've got. So if I'll be able to hear a difference there, or if that will feel like they're getting the power that they need. But yeah, great sounding amp. Just a shame that ecosystem isn't quite there yet with the lack of that multifunction controller. There's also no Bluetooth input from them, although I don't think it would be a problem if you used either the Audison or the Helix Bluetooth input. But again, it's just nice to have everything from the same brand if you're going to do that. I really will wrap that up now, unless I can think of anything else in the next 5 minutes of driving home. That's it from me. And yeah, big thumbs up for the Arc Audio. The sound, it is really nice.